Hey there guys, we are smack in the middle of summer. It is 9,000 degrees, so I wanted to take this opportunity to walk you through how I put together ice pops for my parrots. Now this is a great foraging activity. It definitely encourages your animal to interact with their environment in new and different ways, while also encouraging them to stay cool and stay hydrated. So if this is something you are interested in seeing, make sure to stick around, because that's going to be coming up right after this. Hey there guys, this is Jack over at Hi Redbird, where I am tirelessly working to find new ways to make the keeping of exotic animals and pets more exciting, more affordable, and ultimately more enjoyable. In today's video, since we are smack in the middle of summer, or at least at the very beginning of it, and I'm just getting too old to handle this, it is 9,000 degrees. So I wanted to make ice pops for my birds, and I wanted to show you guys how I do this. This is one of my birds' favorite forms of enrichment when we get into the summer. Honestly, it is a great foraging enrichment. It can be tailored for a wide variety of birds. Because you are going to have food items in blocks of ice, it is always going to be visible to your bird, so it can maintain their interest. If you have a bird that isn't as comfortable with foraging or doesn't have as much experience with foraging and foraging toys, this can be a great thing to get them started with that. It is honestly one of the best foraging activities, but it also has the added benefit of encouraging your bird to stay cool and stay hydrated. I mean, I know I love chewing ice when it gets very hot. For our animals, that can be enjoyable for them as well. I have seen birds that don't remotely care about the food items that are hidden inside an ice pop, but seem to enjoy the destruction of taking apart a small brick of ice. So it's entirely up to your bird what aspect of it they like, but it is one of my bird's favorite forms of enrichment. Now, a couple safety notes before we get started. One, you don't need anything crazy or ridiculous to put this together. I'll walk you guys through the entire process, but the food items that we are going to be using are going to be bird-safe food items that are most likely already in your home, already being worked into your bird's normal diet. The liquids that we are going to be using, you want to make sure that those are bird safe as well. So you want to avoid things that have added sugars, added salt. Things like stock are going to have a lot of salt added to them. You want to make sure there's no caffeine. And I like to avoid anything that has artificial flavors or artificial colors. There's been a lot of research done, and certain species of bird can be particularly susceptible to those artificial colors, artificial flavors, and have an allergic reaction to that. So it's definitely something you want to avoid. But putting ice pops together is super simple, and it's a lot of fun. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into how we're going to be putting these together. Now, one of my favorite things to do is to utilize fun molds, because that can make it a lot of fun, especially if you have kids interacting with this. So here I have some silicone teddy bear molds. I'm going to go ahead and put those on a cutting board. You can use a cutting board or a cookie sheet. You just want to have something underneath to give you a little more structure. Otherwise, it is going to be a complete nightmare to try to get this into the freezer. Now, I am going to be using a sunflower seed in the head of each of these teddy bears. The fun thing about these ice pops is that I can utilize food items that are a little bit higher in fat, a little less desirable nutritionally, because there's only going to be a little bit. Most of it's going to be ice. Now, I'm also going to be using some greens in these. Greens are a fun thing to incorporate, and a lot of people don't think about leafy greens in terms of their bird's diet. But here I'm going to be using kale and collard greens. I'm just going to recommend that you use a sturdy green. You're going to want something that can stand up to being frozen without much of an issue. Now, I am actually doing this a little bit differently. Instead of using just water, I am using dehydrated hibiscus. You can see those dehydrated flowers there. These are made for hibiscus tea. They don't add any caffeine, I did not add any sugar or anything. I just took some dried hibiscus flowers. I put those in a little bit of warm water, and you can see it creates that nice pink coloration. And then, of course, when I'm done, I can use those hibiscus flowers inside the ice pops as well. Change up the items that you are using to make sure that they are going to be useful for your animals, that your animals are going to enjoy them. Of course, if you don't want to use that, you can, of course, just use plain water as well. The good thing about using plain water is that it is going to be clear, so any food items that you use in your ice pops, your animals will be able to see very well. And you can see with it on that cutting board, I can pick it up and move it very, very easily. If it wasn't on that cutting board, as I tried to pick that up, everything would fall apart. So go ahead and just use something to give a little bit of support. Now, one of my favorite things to use to make ice pops for parrots is going to be these recycled yogurt containers. The good thing about these is that once that ice pop is frozen, that's going to be pretty much the perfect size if you have an extra food or water bowl. So that way your animal can get an ice pop, but you're not going to have to worry about that much of a mess as it is thawing and gradually melting. Now, I'm going to use a wide variety of food items here. So we've got things like banana and apple slices, but we've also got sweet pepper that is going to be in there. Think about what sort of food items your animal really, really likes, the sorts of things they will work for. I'm also going to be using some frozen mixed vegetables, and you can see it really doesn't take much in terms of chopped produce and liquid in order to fill up these ice pops. So just utilize things that you have, things that are a normal part of your bird's diet. They'll be willing to work with that. Those just need to go into the freezer for a few hours and they will be set to go. Now, one thing I did want to showcase, some people have an issue when they use produce in a larger container. If you have a large flock and you want to build a really big ice pop, or you have a really big bird, what can happen is you put some produce there, you fill it up with water, and depending on the type of produce that you have, either it's all going to float to the top or sink to the bottom, which means you're going to get one layer of produce. So here you can see there would be a few carrots on one side, everything else dropped to the bottom. This is pretty easy to fix, and all you're going to need is some ice. So here I have a clear container. I wanted a clear container so I could show you guys how I'm doing this. I am going to layer that produce and then a little bit of ice, and then that produce and then a little bit of ice. And you can see there's a wide variety here. We've got more of the sweet peppers, more of the greens, those hibiscus flowers. Now this ice is going to serve as a spacer inside the ice pop. So once I have done enough layers that I am happy that there's plenty of produce in this, that my bird will be interested in it, I can then go ahead and fill that up with water. And because there is all of that ice in there, and you can see I press it down a little bit. I want to try to fill as many gaps as possible. When I pour that water in, it is going to fill all of those spaces, and all of that produce will stay nicely in place. All right, guys, and that really is all there is to it. Then, of course, you just need to freeze it and give it to your bird. It really is a lot of fun, and I would love to hear from you guys. If you are thinking about making this, or if you do make this, I would love to know, what species of bird are you giving this to? And the fun thing about ice pops is they don't have to be limited to birds. Ice pops like this are a great option for things like rabbits that can have a little bit of heat stress in the summer. Again, anything you want to make sure that you are keeping hydrated and keeping cool. Just make sure that the materials that you use for your individual ice pops are going to be appropriate for the species you are making them for. I do want to thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys next time. I need to say thank you to my Patreon patrons for helping to make these videos possible. You can find out more by visiting Hi Red Bird on Patreon or clicking the link in the description section down below if you would like more information. Thanks!